So upon the Queen's death on September the 8th, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II left a substantial fortune. And as usual, anything royal family related, the questions started to arise yet again about how the royal family actually make their fortune. Questions like how much does the royal family cost the taxpayer, what is their actual net worth, and the big one, did the Queen leave Meghan Markle in her will? And actually, thinking on it, I think we all know the answer to that one.
Goodbye!
For years, speculation has persisted concerning the source of the royal family's wealth. Are they just sponging on the UK taxpayer? Or was Prince Philip actually right when he stated the Queen deserves a pay rise because she hasn't had one in over 18 years?
His Royal Highness, Prince Philip. The recent news dispatched from London begins this way. Queen Elizabeth has not had a pay raise for nearly 18 years.
So let's kick things off with what salary Britain actually provides the royal family. The answer actually is not so simple as me and you getting a normal salary from our employer. It's actually quite colluded and quite complicated. The royal family receives both public and private funding. Their substantial wealth comes from inherited fortunes and extensive property, among many other sources of income. Prior to her passing, Queen Elizabeth II's family relied on something called a public sovereign grant. They also have the private duchies of Cornwall and Lancaster, and many other sources to cover the vast majority of their yearly income and costs. Let's start with the government's sovereign grant, which is usually where people get confused. This is what the taxpayer is just giving the royal family, and they are indeed sponging on the UK taxpayer. The sovereign grant is used to fund the monarch's official activities and upkeep the occupied palaces since 2012. The sovereign grant is funded by a share of revenues from the Crown Estate income, according to the British monarchy's official website. The Crown Estate is a collection of UK buildings and farms that earn hundreds of millions of pounds every single year. In 1760, George III, King of the UK and the Commonwealth, handed over control of these territories, and as their official website says, the Crown Estate is not the private property of the King. The monarch cannot sell it, and earnings do not belong to the monarch. Currently, it's managed by a third-party investment firm, basically trying to scrape out as much income as possible. In 2018 to 2019, the fiscal year, the sovereign grant amounted to about $106 million US, or 82.2 million pounds. Despite this huge sum of money, the sovereign grant is not the royal family's to go ahead and play with as they see fit. For example, £32.9 million was set aside for the resurfacing of Buckingham Palace. It also paid for things like the royal family's duty-related travel expenses, payrolls, and other staffing costs, as well, of course, paying for bills and literally keeping the lights on in the palace. The Queen also had something called the Civil List, but it was abolished in 2012. The so-called Civil List was a yearly sum the government gave to the Queen to cover her duties of head of state and head of the Commonwealth. It also covered grants in aid from government departments that had previously paid for travel on official royal businesses and maintenance of royal residences. Then there's also the Privy Purse, which is actually the royal family's sort of real revenue they generate themselves. The sovereign grant is kind of just an expense account that the government gives them for performing actual duties like meeting President Biden or hosting Donald Trump and his 19th wife. But the Privy Purse contains various high-value properties under the royal family's direct control, such as a group of properties called the Duchy of Lancaster, which is a trust containing several pieces of real estate and other assets that are used to fund the monarchy. The income from the Duchy of Lancaster was almost £20 million in 2018, which is roughly $26 million US, and these funds are usually deposited directly into the Privy Purse for the royal family to do with as they wish. Aside from the Privy Purse, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, and Prince Edward all receive salaries from the royal family to help support their extensive schedule of royal family engagements throughout the globe. And the Queen used to use a portion of this money to cover other expenditures that these, in essence, employees might actually have to do. But due to a cloud of scandals, it's unclear if Prince Andrew is still getting this salary from his brother, the King, Charles III. He has since retired from public service in 2019, and again, if he's still receiving funds from the Privy Purse or anywhere from the royal family is still relatively unclear. And then there's the Prince of Wales private estate, which was founded in 1137, one of the oldest estates still in function today. This consists of a collection of assets of real estate spread throughout the 23 counties in England. This estate funds the public and philanthropic, which is a word I can never pronounce, and of course the private activities of the Prince of Wales and his family. When Prince Charles, now the King of the United Kingdom, was the Prince of Wales, him and his wife Camilla Parker Bowles relied heavily on the Duchy of Cornwall for their financial security. The estate provided 90% of their income. The then Prince Charles used the Duchy of Cornwall's overflow to support his princes like William, his wife Kate Middleton, and after them Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The Duchy of Lancaster also provided financial support for Charles's two younger brothers, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, and also his sister, Princess Anne. At the end of the 2019-2020 fiscal year, Charles and Camilla had near £22.2 million of income from the Duchy of Cornwall, and nearly £2 million in funding from the sovereign grant allotted to subsidize their official royal activities. According to this same report, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex activities are also paid for by His Royal Highness's private income from the Duchy of Cornwall. In 2018 to 2019, Prince Charles and his wife Camilla attended a staggering 638 events in 14 countries during this fiscal year, meaning in that 2-year period they only had 92 days off. Whereas the average Monday to Friday worker would have in this same time period, including weekends, 208 days off. And that is still excluding your annual paid holidays, which some people get between 20 and 30. During this time, they also took on 580 engagements around the UK and overseas before the COVID outbreak put a halt to all the travel plans the royal family had planned. And it was of course because of this global pandemic, the Queen's natural wealth and of course the royal family's wealth took a substantial hit. Unexpectedly to many, the Queen and the royal family actually were never billionaires, despite having a vast amount of wealth. According to the Sunday Times Rich List, the Queen's wealth fell by £20 million in 2020, bringing her total net worth to around about £350 million. The British royal family's land portfolio dropped by 1.2% in 2019 to 2020 to £13.4 billion because of the COVID lockdown, which of course affected things like tourism and of course things that you can sell to tourists with the Queen's head on. But surprisingly to many, despite the Queen's love of fancy hats and expensive jewelry, she was actually quite cheap. The Sunday Times reported that while cleaning Buckingham Palace, old newspapers were shredded to use as horse fodder, all packaging string was recycled, and worn out linens and dusters were mended and fixed for reuse. And at this point, we might as well talk about the most controversial couple in the royal family right now, which is Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced in January 2020 that they would be stepping aside from their royal obligations and become financially independent. As of September 2020, Prince Harry had stopped receiving money from the Duchy of Cornwall, and since then Harry and Meghan have been forced to rely on Harry's inheritance from Princess Diana, and in the same month it was reported that the couple had repaid £2.4 million from their sovereign grant that had been used to restore their own Windsor home at Frogmore Cottage. In contrast to what was previously thought, Harry and Meghan confirmed that their sit-down interview with Oprah that they had ceased receiving pay in the first quarter of 2020. But because of this sort of alarming interview and obviously speaking out about the royal family and their insider secrets, it seems the royal family retaliated by cancelling their security detail. And since Harry and Meghan were concerned about their safety of baby Archie at the time, claimed that they are paying for this protection out of their own pocket. And at this point, you sort of have to ask, this is a little bit tit for tat. You wanted to be out the royal family, but you still want them to protect you.
That makes no sense.
After their mother, Princess Diana, passed away in 1997 in that tragic car accident that everybody watched around the world, Harry and his brother William inherited a large fortune. Harry had remarked in this interview that he had been living well on his proportion of the estate. It had been reported in The Independent that Harry's share upon reaching the age of 25 was worth around about $13 million after taxes. Harry admitted in this interview that it was necessary to use this money in order to relocate his family over to California. So far, Harry and Meghan's entrepreneurial plans have panned out. By leveraging his former claim to royalty, Harry and Meghan have signed a Netflix deal, which is valued at around about $100 to $250 million US dollars, although the streaming service has not confirmed the actual number. Meghan has also made her money from sponsorships and other sources, in addition to her compensation from her time on the American show Suits, which is reportedly to be around about $450,000 US dollars. And to anybody who has watched this show, this seems like a much more than fair amount. As of February 2020, Forbes placed Harry and Meghan's wealth around about 10 million US dollars, albeit this figure has not been verified by the couple. But now back to the Queen. Aside from the Balmoral and Sandringham estates, the Queen also possesses a personal financial fund and a rare stamp collection. Yeah, the Queen was a stamp nerd. But in times of financial need, the Queen could not simply just sell any of these assets, like the royal art collection, for instance. She could not simply just sell some of her famous tiaras or royal art, jewels, mansions, or necklaces. And now, following her death, these assets have all been passed down to King Charles. And let's be honest, he's gonna look absolutely fantastic in some of those diamond earrings. Additionally, all the money that Queen Elizabeth's kids and grandkids have made from the duchies is extra cash they can put towards savings or investing, just like me and you investing with eToro on the link below. Now, of course, at this point, we now need to move on to the more controversial subjects. How much does the Queen actually cost the taxpayer, and was she actually paying taxes herself? Queen Elizabeth II willingly paid income tax on capital gains from 1992 until her death earlier this year. She also paid tax on any money she earned from the Duchy of Lancaster that wasn't used for governmental purposes. Besides the mandatory VAT payment, she also made voluntary contributions to municipal coffers. But what does it actually cost the British taxpayer to support the royal family? Well, honestly, it's not that much. So when you see Susan on Facebook complaining about the royal family needs to be abolished because it costs too much money, just throw these numbers back in the comments. The royal family costs the British taxpayer around about 65 cents as of 2022. That's right, well under $1. But according to Business Insider, the price will increase by 40% in lieu of high inflation. But the average British person will spend less a year on the royal family than it will for a bad cup of coffee at Starbucks, albeit a venti quadruple shot of half caffeine, non-fat, dolphin-friendly milk. But the big question is, does the royal family actually earn their keep? I mean, the dollar is better in the average taxpayer's pocket than it is in some stranger they've never met who cuts a cake with a sword. Well, according to statistics, the admission income from royal estates was near 50 million Great British pounds in 2019 to 2020, another 20 million on top of that in gift shop sales. The House of Windsor is set to be worth 19 million Great British pounds and hundreds of millions to the British economy each year. Now, according to Brand Finance, the royal family as a whole every single year costs around about 500 million pounds to maintain this lifestyle every single year. That's from keeping the lights on, paying for butlers, and making sure the Queen has the best jewelry on when she meets Donald Trump. Now, 500 million a year is an alarming figure, but the royal family is estimated to contribute 2.5 billion pounds in the same year, meaning a 5x return on the investment that is the royal family. Many people call the royal family sponges on the taxpayer, but the math is actually the opposite. The royal family is a great investment to the UK economy, and abolishing it will not only hurt the UK economy, but it would also mean the royal family can run independently and be much more wealthy than they already are. So I have to ask you at this point, are you convinced? Should we keep the royal family, or should we abolish it and let them run the palaces themselves? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. It always brings up controversy, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. For now, I'm still a royalist. I think 5x return on your investment is pretty damn good. The code word for this video is thank you, Liz. If you could drop that in the comments, it would greatly help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to learn more on investing, check this video out up here. Thanks for watching. Be safe.